we all know what it's like to wait, right? I take it you have had times of waiting in your life. Maybe it's on a road trip. Kids in the room may be able to definitely relate to this. Maybe it's been on a road trip, right? Are we there yet? 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 It's that anticipation. Maybe your waiting has been waiting in line for something. Anybody go Black Friday shopping and wait in line? Nobody? One person, right? I did all of my Black Friday shopping at home on the couch in PJs because Black Friday shopping, I think, starts in like July this year. But maybe it was that, right? Maybe it's you've been to the doctor's office and you look at that same poster on the wall for like 20 minutes, and you think, I've read every single word on that poster. You could describe every little crack in the ceiling, like you know everything because you've been waiting, and it's like, okay, let's go. Isn't it interesting? As kids, we can't wait for Christmas to get here, and we just feel like we're waiting. And then there's something that happens. The older you get, the more you want it to slow down. It's like the older you get, the faster Christmas seems to come. But think of a kid waiting for Christmas. That's where we are today. And it's not just that we're waiting for presents as followers of Jesus. We're actually waiting to celebrate something else. Amidst all the hustle and bustle, I hope that you're waiting to celebrate something else on Christmas Day. It's the birth of Jesus, the coming of our Savior. Right? When Jesus was born 2,000 years ago, it's not like this just happened out of nowhere. It's not like it just popped up and nobody's like, oh, that's a new thing. When did that happen? For centuries, the people of God had been waiting. They had been expecting. They had been anticipating. They had been waiting for this figure known as the Messiah. Maybe you've heard that word before. Maybe you haven't. The Messiah was the coming king, right? He was this king that was going to come, and he was going to reign, and he was going to rule. He would rescue the people of God from their enemies. And do you know what the Greek word for Messiah is? It's Christos, which is where we get our English word Christ. See, Jesus Christ is not a last name, like Christ is not his last name. Christ is a title. It signifies who he is. So when we say Jesus the Christ, when we say Jesus the Messiah, we're talking about this man, this figure who had been waited on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. For the next 4 weeks, we're going to look at this idea of waiting. We're going to look at some different passages in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah was a prophet in the Old Testament who wrote hundreds and hundreds of years before Jesus was born. But he anticipated Jesus. And the people of God were anticipating Jesus. They might not have called him Jesus. They may have referred to him as the Messiah, but they were anticipating him nonetheless. And this morning we're going to look at Isaiah 11. So if you got a Bible, you can open up to there. Isaiah 11, we're going to talk about the first 10 verses. Isaiah 11. They won't be up on the screen, so if you want to follow along, you should look it up. Here's what we're going to see in Isaiah 11. We're going to see hope coming from a situation that seemed like there was no hope. Promises of a shoot coming from a stump, a reminder to them and to us that even when things seem weary, we have reason to hope, and we have reason to rejoice. See, in the very beginning of the Bible, the first few pages, you see that God created all things, and there was unity between his creation and him. There was unity between these people that God had created and the Creator. And then sin enters the picture and things go south real fast. The unity that was there is now there no more. And the rest of the Bible, the rest of the story, the pages from here on, contain a couple of things. They contain a couple of things. First, they contain this, the rebellion of man. We see it again and again and again. We talked about this in the class I was in right before this. We see the rebellion of man. Man going, and woman going, I know my own way. I know what's best. I know what's right. I don't need to follow God. We see that, but then we also see this. And this is super important. We see a God that does not give up. A God that doesn't just write creation off. A God that pursues his creation. So this is kind of the setup to where we are in Isaiah. Isaiah, I said, was a prophet, right? He had a vision, and it's recorded for us in the book of Isaiah. His vision begins with God's people, Israel, corrupt and under judgment. Things are not going well for them. The first few chapters speak of this corruption, this rebellion, this judgment, right? And it gives us a picture of what happens because of this. Then in Isaiah 6, we see a time will come where Israel will face destruction. Let me read a couple of the descriptions that it uses. It says, cities will lie waste without inhabitants. Houses will be without people, like a stump that remains when a tree is cut down. Who's going to do all this? It's interesting. Another nation is going to come in, an enemy of Israel, Assyria. Interestingly enough, that nation, this is how it describes them a little later in Isaiah. Isaiah 10, 33 and 34 say this, but look, the Lord of heaven's armies, will chop down the mighty tree of Assyria with great power. He will cut down the proud, that lofty tree will be brought down. He will cut down the forest with an axe. Lebanon will fall to the mighty one. And so in Isaiah, we have two forests being cut down, right? We have the forest that represents Israel being cut down by Assyria, and then the forest of Assyria, who just cut down Israel, is now being cut down as well. The contrast is important. Don't miss this. Assyria cut down and it's dead. It's gone. There's nothing that comes from that. And yet, Israel will come back. Isaiah 6:13 says this, but as an oak tree leaves a stump when it's cut down, so Israel's stump will be a holy seed. Right? Gardeners in this room, or farmers in this room, you understand this concept that from something just tiny that seems like it's nothing at all comes something great. It's amazing to me that every year I plant my garden, and every year I start out with probably what amounts to a handful of seeds. And at the end of the year, I have a bucket load of tomatoes. From those little seeds comes this great harvest. This is where we enter the story in chapter 11. If you're there, and I hope you are, look at verse 1. Israel's been cut down, Assyria's been cut down, but for God's people there is hope. Isaiah 11, verse 1. There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his roots shall bear fruit. Look, when hope seems lost, God makes a way. It's what they were being reminded of, and it's what I want you to be reminded of as well. When hope seems lost, God makes a way. I fully recognize that this season that we are in leading up to Christmas can sometimes be one that's filled with a mix of emotions. For some, this is the most wonderful time of the year. For others, this is not the most wonderful time of the year. And for still others, you're somewhere in between those two. I want to remind you of this. When hope seems lost, God makes a way. Stumps don't look like beginnings, do they? They look like endings. They look like failure, disappointment, final chapters. And that's, I think, exactly how Israel felt. Israel felt like all hope was lost. Their promise that had been made all the way back in Genesis to Abraham seems lost. If you've ever driven through an area that's been devastated by a wildfire, it's a very stark contrast. You'll be driving through one area and you'll see forest, and then it's like you round the corner and you see acre after acre, mile after mile of just black, charred land. But it's interesting that those places never really stay that way. Because if you go back there months or years afterwards, here's what you'll see. You'll start to see new growth coming, maybe even right from the stump that was burned away. A green shoot pushes through and nobody expects it. This is what's being communicated in Isaiah 11:1. God brings life from places that we thought were finished. See, Isaiah says that it's going to come from the stump of Jesse. That's important. Jesse was the father of a guy named David. David was a king in Israel. So why go back to Jesse instead of just saying David? Because some of you may have been, well, I didn't know who Jesse was, but I've heard of David, right? Why not go with David? He's the more well-known one. Because at this point in Israel's story, the house of David, the line, isn't doing so well. And so I think God is going back. He's saying, no. This has always been the plan. Like, go back further than David. From the root of Jesse, something will come. By saying the stump of Jesse, he's taking them back even further than the glory days of David. He's taking them back, and he's saying, I have always promised this. I have always sought to rebuild. God is rebuilding from the ground up. He takes the stump of Jesse and says, this is where I'm going to start again. God doesn't need impressive people. He doesn't need perfect circumstances. He doesn't need ideal conditions. He grows hope in the cracks of brokenness. And you might feel like that today. Maybe you feel cut down. Maybe this year has taken something from you, more than you expected. Maybe your strength doesn't really feel like it's there, and maybe it just feels like there's a stump. One of the things that this season reminds us of is this, that God sees what we cannot see. When hope seems lost, God makes a way. The shoot isn't just a sign of hope. It's a sign of a coming king. But what's this king going to be like? What's this king going to be like? Isaiah tells us that this king is going to be like unlike any other leader that Israel's had. Look at verse 2. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. Friends, when we lose our way, God sends a Spirit-led king. Israel's kings, if you look throughout their history, there were some that were good, some that were bad, but it sometimes seems like more often than not, they were led by pride, by fear, by ambition, and by human wisdom. But this king, this Messiah, is guided by something different entirely. He's guided by God. And spoiler alert, this Messiah is God. Look at the words that Isaiah uses to describe him. He says he possesses wisdom, understanding, counsel, might, knowledge, the fear of the Lord. In other words, he always knows what to do. He knows what's best, and he knows how to lead his people well. He leads with righteousness. He never guesses. He never stumbles. He never misjudges. This is the perfect king. When you don't know what to do, when life feels dark, when you're overwhelmed, Jesus is the Spirit-led king that guides his people. So he shifts now from the kind of king he is, a Spirit-led king, to what he does. And I think this is important because its character matters, who he is matters, but it also matters what's he going to do, what's he going to bring, how is he going to bring hope. Look at verses 3 through 5. And his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see, or decide disputes by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide with equality for the meek of the earth. And he shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his waist, and faithfulness the belt of his loins. When things feel broken, God sends a just king. Look, we live in a world where it often feels like justice is delayed. Read through the book of Psalms, and you'll see this. You'll see the psalmists lamenting over and over and over again, "How long, O Lord, will this happen? How long, O Lord, will it be like this? How long, O Lord, will it be that my enemies seem to prosper and I don't?" A world where people are divided, where the poor are overlooked, where systems fail, where the powerful abuse and the vulnerable suffer. That's the world we live in. And for a world like that, Jesus brings hope. Because there will come a day when Jesus will judge. And he's not going to judge by appearance or by rumors. He judges perfectly. He defends the weak. He comforts the evil. He brings equality when there has been inequality. Jesus embodies this perfectly in his ministry. He lifts up the poor. He embraces the outcast. He confronts the proud. He confronts the sin in our lives. But he doesn't just leave us there. He offers us a better way. This is the good news, my friends. The hope of Advent is not just that Jesus cares. It's not just that God cares. The hope of Advent is this, and the hope of the gospel is this. It's that God will set things right. The reign of the king will set everything right. Look at verse 6 through verse 9. It's a fascinating passage to me. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the lion and the fattened calf together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child play over the hole of a cobra, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the adder's den. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. When fear surrounds us, God brings a peace that disarms. We're going to talk about peace more in depth in a few weeks. But I need you to know this today. Part of what we celebrate with the coming of Christ is the coming of a peace that we probably have never truly felt. I remember some of you have heard this story before. I remember I worked at a youth camp in Arizona for a couple of summers. And one morning, a coworker of mine and I decided we were going to go out and we were going to go on a hike. We started about 5 a.m. and we went up the mountain. We followed the trail, and we were running a little late coming back, so we thought we'll just make our own trail and we will blaze down the mountain. And so I went, and there was a little stair-step formation of rocks, and I stepped down over the first one, and I went to step over the second one, and I stuck my foot down and I heard a rattle. And I look down, and there's a rattlesnake down there. I probably shouldn't go that way. And so I turn around, and I hear another rattle. And there's another rattlesnake behind me. So 5-10 feet either way, there's rattlesnakes. And I froze in fear. I am deathly afraid of snakes. I told kids this on youth trips when I was doing full-time youth ministry. I said, if we see a snake, you are on your own. Your parents signed a waiver. Good luck. Right? I hate snakes. Why does it always have to be snakes? I don't understand. But I don't like snakes at all. And so here I am frozen, and my buddy has to come and grab me. And so the rest of the way, here's what we do. I'm not exaggerating. He would walk ahead about 15 or 20 feet. He would go, the coast is clear, and I would run to him. And then he'd go. And we did this the entire way back. We were late. Interestingly enough, we thought it's really weird that those rattlesnakes had a yellowish, greenish color to them. We looked them up when we got back. They were Mojave rattlesnakes, 17 times more venomous than a regular rattlesnake. So that's fun, right? So if you're ever with me and you wonder, why does he hate snakes so much? Now you know why. And so when I read this passage, and I read, your child shall play over the hole of the cobra, I'm like, what in the world is this? This is vivid imagery to illustrate the kind of peace that this coming king, the Messiah, is going to bring. We live in a time where we would describe it as already not yet. In some ways, we've already experienced this peace. Those of you who are followers of Jesus, you have an inner peace that passes all understanding, that the Spirit dwells inside you and gives you a peace that you simply cannot explain adequately to others. So in some senses, you've experienced this, but in other senses, you look around and you go, we're not experiencing peace at all. But one day we will. The world with Jesus began restoring in his first coming what he will complete in his second coming. At his second coming, when Christ comes again, there will be a peace that we cannot even begin to imagine. We don't see all of it yet, but we do see Jesus, the one who brings peace to fearful hearts and will one day bring peace to all creation. Isaiah ends the passage by widening the scope. If you looked back and you read this promise, in the beginning there was a guy named Abraham. His name was actually Abram, and God changed his name to Abraham. Abraham is given a promise. He's given a promise that from him would come a nation. From him would come descendants more numerous than the sands or the stars in the sky. This is the promise that was given. And the promise was given that the world would be blessed, that all would be blessed through God's people. Fast forward to now, right? And one of the tendencies that maybe could creep in a little bit would be to say, well, we're God's people. But the promise, the mission has always been that God's people would bless the world around them. And in this last verse that I'm going to read today, we see this. We see God saying, no, this hope is for all people. The hope isn't just confined to Israel. It's not limited to one place, one people, one ethnicity. Look at what it says in verse 10. In that day, the root of Jesse, who shall stand as a signal for the people, of him shall the nations inquire, and his resting place shall be glorious. Here's the point. Hope isn't just ours. It's for the world. If you are a follower of Jesus, part of the mandate that you have is to tell others of the hope that can be found only in Jesus. The root of Jesse stands as a symbol. It stands as this banner for all to see. That from this place of destruction, this place of weariness, this place of where all hope seems to be lost, there is hope and something is coming. Jesus is not the Messiah of a single nation or a single ethnicity or a single people group. Jesus is the Savior of the world. All people, all nations, all backgrounds, all stories can come to him. The hope that God promised Isaiah just spreads out further and further. It's like a ripple. If you've ever thrown a rock into a pond and you see the ripples just go out, that's what someone who's experienced the hope of God ought to be like. You can't help but spread the good news. If you've received hope from Jesus, it is meant to be shared, my friends. Isaiah shows us that in a world cut down, a people without hope, a forest of stumps, into that world, God promises a shoot. Here's the good news. Jesus has come. Jesus has come and he's offered salvation. And some of you have stepped into that today, but you may still feel weary. I want to remind you of this. We don't just celebrate his first coming, we long for his second coming as well. Because he's a king. He's a savior. He's our hope. We're going to sing in just a minute. The one Isaiah pointed to has come. His name is Jesus. So, if you are a believer in this room today, let me ask you this. Where do you need to reclaim hope? Where have you forgotten that God brings life from stumps? And where is Jesus inviting you to trust him more fully? For those of you in this room who are not yet followers of Jesus, let me just encourage you with this. The King came for you. He lived for you. He died for you. He rose again for you. He offers forgiveness, new life, and a future. This is something that weary people can rejoice in. That we can rejoice all day long in. Not because circumstances are perfect, but because Christ has come. And Christ will come again.